Oh, you've never been where I've been. I hope you never have to. But you felt the question, haven't you? Late at night, when the world is quiet and your brain won't shut up, who would you save? The one who makes you laugh? The one who carries the weight? The one who reminds you of home? Or the one who doesn't deserve it, but needs it most? This isn't a story about heroes with capes. It's about us. Broken, tired, sarcastic, terrified us. And the moment when the math of survival stops adding up. When the rules say leave no one behind, but your gut whispers some people are liabilities. I learned the hard way that saving someone isn't about their rank, their loyalty, or how many times they've had your back. It's about something else. Something I almost figure out too late. Strap in, because I'm going to tell you about the day I had to decide who was worth saving. And the answer might make you hate me. Or thank me. I don't get to choose. The rotor wash slapped the dust into my teeth before I even opened the bird's side door. That's how it always started. Not with a bang, but with a mouthful of grit and the high-pitched whine of an engine that's been pushed past its bedtime. I was 23 years old, a sergeant with a squad that had no business being as good as we were, and I was about to make the first of many decisions that would haunt me. Sarge, if you're going to stare off into the middle distance like a romance novel protagonist, can you at least do it after we're on the ground? That was Delgado, private first class, 20 years old, built like a fire hydrant and twice as stubborn. He was already checking his rifle for the third time, a nervous habit he'd picked up after our last ambush. His hands didn't shake anymore, though. Progress. Maybe she's looking for Wi-Fi, said Koenig. Specialist. Our comms guy. He had the kind of face that looked like it was designed for a high school yearbook. All easy smile and sleepy eyes, but I'd seen him reroute a satellite signal through a blown-out radio using nothing but a paperclip and spite. He was also the only person I knew who could fall asleep during incoming fire. Something wrong with his adrenal glands, the medic said. Or maybe something right. Shut up, both of you. That was Tran, staff sergeant, technically my peer, but she'd been in the sandbox 2 tours longer than me. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Tran had a way of looking at you that made you feel like you just failed a test you didn't know you were taking. Vietnamese American, 31 years old, and the best damn shot I'd ever seen. She also carried a small jade Buddha in her pocket that she'd rub between her fingers before we rolled out. She'd kill you if you mentioned it. I was Riley, Sergeant Riley, and I was the one who got to make the calls. The Chinook banked hard, and the green light above the door flicked to red. Not yet. My stomach did that little flip it always did, the one that felt like I'd swallowed a cold coin. We were headed into the Korangal Valley. If that name doesn't mean anything to you, congratulations on having a life that isn't a series of bad decisions. To us, it was the place where GPS went to die and every rock could be a pressure plate. We were there to extract a down pilot. Captain Marcus Webb, Air Force, F-16 jockey who'd punched out 3 clicks north of a village called Sabaya. The intel said he was alive. The intel also said the area was moderately contested, which is military speak for, we have no idea how many of them are out there, but probably a lot. My team was small. Me, Tran, Delgado, Koenig, and 2 others, Harlow and Singh. Harlow was our medic, a lanky redhead from Oregon who'd joined the Army because she wanted to pay for med school, but accidentally fell in love with the chaos. She had a tattoo of a cartoon Band-Aid on her left bicep, and a bedside manner that involved a lot of swearing. You're not dying, you idiot. Now hold still was her version of a lullaby. Singh was our engineer, the guy who could build a bridge out of chewing gum and blown-out tires. He was from Punjab, immigrated when he was 12, and he had a quiet, steady way about him that made you feel like the world wasn't actually on fire. He also had a wife back home who was 8 months pregnant, and he talked to her ultrasound photo every night like it could hear him. 6 of us, against a valley full of people who wanted us dead, and 1 pilot who was probably scared out of his mind. The red light turned green. Go, 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 I shouted, even though nobody needed to hear it. We drilled this 100 times. Delgado went first because he was the fastest and the smallest. He'd be the hardest to hit. Then Koenig because if he got clipped, we'd lose comms before we even started. Then Harlow because medics are precious. Then Singh because he carried the heavy demo gear. Then Tran because she'd shoot anyone who looked at us wrong. And me last because that's where the leader goes. My boots hit the dirt, and the Chinook roared away leaving us in a sudden, awful silence. That was the thing about insertions. 1 second, you're vibrating with engine noise and adrenaline. The next, you're standing in a place that feels like the moon, dry, brown, and utterly indifferent to your existence. The heat hit me like a wall. 110 degrees, easy. The air smelled like dust, diesel, and something else. Something old. Something that had been watching for a long time. Sound off? I whispered into my headset. Delgado good. His voice was tight, but steady. Koenig, reading 5 by 5. Locals are quiet. Too quiet. He was already scanning frequencies. I've got a lot of chatter on the insurgent bands, but it's in Pashto, and my translator app is currently a brick. Harlow, I'm here, already sweating through my shirt. This is why I wanted to be a dermatologist. Sing. Good. Ground feels stable. No immediate signs of IEDs. He was already crouched, running his hand over the dirt like he was reading Braille. Tran, I've got eyes on a ridge. 2 o'clock. Movement. Not sure if it's animal or not. Her voice was calm. Annoyingly calm. Like she was ordering coffee. I clicked my mic twice, acknowledging everyone, and took a knee. The terrain was a nightmare. Steep, rocky hills on either side of a narrow wadi. A dry riverbed that would become a kill box if anyone started shooting from above. The village of Sabaya was about a click north, maybe a little more. The pilot's beacon was pinging somewhere between us and there. But the beacon was also a trap. Everyone knew that. You put out a distress signal, and the bad guys wait by it like spiders. Plan? Tran asked, not looking at me. Her eyes were still on the ridge. We don't go straight to the beacon, I said. We loop east through the cover of those rock formations. Sing, can you keep us off the obvious paths? I can try, Sergeant, but the ground here is old. People have walked these routes for centuries. The patterns are, he paused, searching for the word. Predictable. That's what they're counting on. Then, we're unpredictable. I stood up. Single file. 15 Meter Spacing. Delgado, you're on point. Tran, you've got rear security. Koenig, keep those ears open. If you hear so much as a goat farting in Pashto, I want to know about it. We moved. For the first hour, nothing happened. That was almost worse than getting shot at. The suspense built in my chest like a second heartbeat. Every rock looked like a sniper. Every shadow looked like an ambush. Delgado moved like a ghost, stepping over twigs and around loose stones with a grace that seemed impossible for someone his size. I watched his back and thought about how young he was, how young all of them were. I was the oldest besides Tran, and I was only 23. Koenig started humming. He always did that when he was nervous. It wasn't a real song, just a tuneless, repetitive drone that came through the comms like white noise. Harlow told him to stop. He didn't. Singh whispered a prayer in Punjabi. I didn't understand the words, but the rhythm of it was comforting, like a heartbeat. We reached the edge of the rock formations around 1,400 hours. The sun was a hammer. My canteen was half empty, and I could feel the salt crusting on my lips. I called a halt and passed around the last of the energy bars. Nobody complained. Nobody ever complained. Not where I could hear them. That was the unspoken rule. You could be dying of thirst. You could be so tired your legs were screaming, but you kept your mouth shut because the person next to you was hurting just as bad. I've got something, Koenig said suddenly. His humming stopped. Signal. Not the beacon. A transmission. Short burst. Encrypted, but it's ours. It's the pilot. My heart jumped. Can you trace it? Already did. He's not at the beacon. He's about 800 meters east of it, behind a ridge. And he's moving. Koenig's voice was confused. That's weird. Why would he leave the beacon? Because he's smart, Tran said. Or because someone else is using the beacon to draw fire. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Both. Assume both. New plan. We go east, intercept the pilot's signal. We do not engage unless we have to. This is a grab and go. In and out before they even know we're here. Famous last words, Delgado muttered. Did you say something private? Nothing, Sarge. Just admiring the scenery. We moved again, angling east. The terrain got rougher. The rock formations turned into cliffs, and we had to climb. Singh went first, finding holds that I wouldn't have spotted in a million years. He belayed a rope, and we went up one by one. My arms were burning by the time I reached the top. Sweat dripped into my eyes. I wiped it away and looked down. And that's when I saw them. A patrol. 10, maybe 12 fighters. They were moving along the wadi below us, heading north. toward the beacon. They had AKs, RPGs, the usual, but they were moving slow, deliberate, like they knew something we didn't. Hold position, I breathed. Don't move. Don't even breathe loud. We lay there on the rock, flat as lizards, as the patrol passed beneath us. I could see their faces. Young. Most of them were young. Boys, really. One of them couldn't have been more than 16. He was carrying an RPG on his shoulder like it was a toy. He looked bored. I thought about my little brother, who was 16, and worry about prom. The world is a stupid, broken place. The patrol disappeared around a bend. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. That was close, Harlow whispered. Too close. They're heading for the beacon, Tran said. They're going to set up an ambush. We need to get to the pilot before they realize he's not there. Agreed. I checked my watch. We have maybe 20 minutes before they're in position. Can we make it? Singh studied the terrain ahead. If we move fast and stay high, yes. But there's a problem. The ridge the pilot is on, it's a dead end. Cliff's on 3 sides. If he's up there, the only way down is the way we came up. And if the patrol hears us, then we don't get heard. I looked at Delgado. You're still on point. But I want you to double time it. Koenig, keep trying to raise the pilot on a private channel. Tell him we're coming. Tell him to stay put and stay quiet. We moved faster. The rocks were sharp under my gloves, and my knees were starting to ache from all the crouching. I ignored it. Pain was just information. That's what my drill sergeant used to say. Pain is just information. Information I thought grimly that my body was falling apart. Koenig's voice crackled in my ear. I've got him. Pilot's name is Webb. He says he's got a broken leg, and he's down to his last magazine. He heard the patrol moving below him about an hour ago. He's scared, Sarge. I can hear it in his voice. Tell him we're almost there. Tell him to hang on. We crested the final rise, and I saw him. Captain Marcus Webb. He was huddled behind a boulder, his flight suit torn, his face caked with dirt and dried blood. His leg was bent at an angle that made my stomach lurch. He had a pistol in his hand, and he was pointing it at us as we came over the ridge. U.S. Army, I shouted, holding up my hand. We're here to get you out, sir. He lowered the pistol. His eyes were wide, and I could see the relief flooding into them like water into a dry creek. Thank God, he said. His voice cracked. Thank God. Harlow was on him in an instant, checking his leg, his vitals, his pupils. Broken tibia, possible concussion, dehydration, and he's got a gash on his scalp that needs stitches. He's not walking out of here. Then we carry him. I looked at Singh. Can you rig a litter? I can, but it will slow us down. A lot. I don't care. We're not leaving him. While Singh and Delgado worked on a makeshift litter from paracord and a poncho, I pulled Tran aside. We've got maybe 10 minutes before that patrol realizes the beacon is a dead end and starts searching. We need to move faster than they do. Tran nodded. Her jade Buddha was in her hand, and she was rubbing it so hard I thought it might wear away. The extraction point is 2 clicks south. If we take the high ground, we avoid the wadi. But it's exposed. If they have a sniper, then you'll see him first. She almost smiled. Almost. That's not a plan, Riley. That's a prayer. Then pray. We moved. Singh and Delgado carried the litter with Webb strapped in and groaning every time they hit a bump. Harlow walked beside him, feeding him water and telling him stories about her cat back home. Koenig was on the radio, coordinating with the extraction bird. And Tran and I brought up the rear, our eyes scanning every ridge, every shadow, every flicker of movement. We were halfway to the extraction point when the first shot rang out. It cracked past my ear, close enough that I felt the wind of it. Sniper! Tran shouted, and we all hit the dirt. Webb screamed. The litter tipped, and Singh barely caught it before it spilled. Where? I yelled. 3 o'clock. High ridge, about 400 meters. Tran was already returning fire, her rifle barking in short, controlled bursts. I saw dust puff off the ridge where her rounds hit. The sniper ducked. We're sitting ducks out here. Harlow shouted. We need cover. The only cover was a shallow depression about 50 meters ahead. It wasn't much, just a dip in the terrain where a small stream had once cut through, but it was something. Move to the depression. I ordered. Delgado saying, get the litter moving. Koenig on me. Tran, suppressing fire. We ran, or rather, we stumbled and crawled and dragged ourselves toward that dip in the earth. The sniper fired again, and this time the round hit the rock next to Koenig's head, spraying him with shrapnel. He went down, clutching his face. I'm hit. I'm hit. My heart stopped. I grabbed him by the collar and hauled him the last few meters into the depression. Harlow was already there, pulling his hands away from his face. It's just a cut, she said. Shallow. You'll have a cool scar. Stop being a baby. König laukit. It was a hysterical, breathless laugh, but it was a laugh. He was okay. They were all okay. For now. Tran slid into the depression last, still firing. I think I winged him, she said. But there's more coming. I heard voices on the wind. They know we're here. I looked around the depression. 6 soldiers, 1 wounded pilot, and a whole lot of open ground between us and the extraction point. The sniper was still up there, maybe wounded, maybe not. And a patrol was closing in. Probably 20, 30 fighters. Maybe more. We were outnumbered, outgunned, and pinned down. And I had to decide what to do next. Koenig, how far out is the bird? He wiped blood out of his eye and checked his radio. 20 minutes. But they won't land in this. Not with active fire. Then, we clear the fire. I looked at Tran. Can you take out that sniper? If I had a clear shot, yes. But he's behind a rock. I need to flank him. How long? 10 minutes. Maybe less. But I can't do it alone. I looked at Delgado. He was already checking his rifle. I'll go with her. No. The word came out harder than I intended. You're needed here. Singh, can you and Harlow hold this position with the pilot? Singh nodded. His face was calm, even serene. Yes, Sergeant. We can. Then Tran and I will go. I met her eyes. You take the shot. I'll cover you. She didn't argue. She never argued. She just checked her magazine, slung her rifle, and said, try to keep up. We crawled out of the depression, low and fast. The ground was hot against my belly, and I could feel every rock and twig pressing into my ribs. Behind us, I heard Singh start to pray again. Harlow was talking to Webb, keeping him calm. Delgado was setting up a defensive perimeter. König was humming. Tran moved like water. She found paths I couldn't see, pressed herself into shadows that shouldn't have existed. I followed as best I could, my heart hammering against my ribs. Every second felt like an hour. Every sound felt like a bullet. We reached the base of the sniper's ridge. Tran held up a fist. Stop. I stopped. He's up there, she whispered. About 50 meters. I can climb the south face. It's steeper, but he won't expect it. You stay here. If he looks down, you draw his fire. Draw his fire. I repeated the words, tasting their stupidity. You want me to be bait. I want you to be alive. So does everyone back in that depression. So do the math, Sergeant. She was right. She was always right. I hated that about her. She climbed. I watched her go, her fingers finding holds that seemed impossible, her body flattening against the rock like she was part of it. I lost her in the shadows. And then I waited. The sniper fired again. Not at me. At the depression. I heard Harlow scream. Not in pain, just in surprise, and I had to fight every instinct to run back. No, trust them. They can hold. Another shot. This one kicked up dirt 10 meters to my left. He was getting closer, adjusting his aim. Hey, I shouted, standing up just long enough to fire a burst from my rifle. Over here, you coward. The sniper turned. I saw the glint of his scope, and I dove behind a rock as a round shattered the stone where my head had been. Okay, he was focused on me now. Good, bad, terrifying. Another shot. Another. I kept moving, kept firing, kept making noise. I was a one-woman circus, and the sniper was the audience. And then suddenly the shot stopped. I looked up. Tran was standing on the ridge. The sniper was on the ground, his rifle skittering down the slope. She'd taken him out with a knife. Quiet. Efficient. No shot to give away her position. She looked down at me, and even from 50 meters away, I could see the satisfaction in her eyes. Told you I could do it. Show off. We ran back to the depression. The patrol was closer now. I could hear them shouting, could see dust rising from the wadi. Birds 5 minutes out. König shouted, but they won't land unless the LZ is cold. Then we make it cold. I looked at Singh. You still have that demo gear? He smiled. It was not a nice smile. Yes, Sergeant. Set a charge. When they get close, we blow it. The dust and noise will cover our extraction. But we have to time it perfectly. Singh worked quickly, placing a small charge on the edge of the wadi. The patrol was maybe 200 meters away now. I could see their faces. The same young faces. The bored teenager with the RPG. Ready, Singh said. Wait. I watched the patrol. Waited until they were directly above the charge. Now, the explosion was deafening. Dust and rock shot into the air, and the patrol scattered, shouting and firing blindly. In the chaos, the Chinook dropped out of the sky, its rotors kicking up a whirlwind of grit. Go, 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 I screamed. We ran. Delgado and Singh grabbed the litter. Harlow and Koenig covered them. Tran and I brought up the rear, firing at the dust cloud to keep the patrol's heads down. The Chinook's ramp was down, and the crew chief was waving us in. One by one, they climbed aboard. Delgado, Singh, Webb, Harlow, Koenig, Tran. I was the last one, as always. I jumped onto the ramp, and the bird lifted off before I was even inside. I fell onto the metal floor, gasping, laughing, crying, I didn't know which. The patrol was tiny below us. The valley was shrinking, and we were alive. Webb reached out and grabbed my hand. His grip was weak, but his eyes were fierce. Thank you, he said. Thank you for coming back for me. I nodded. I couldn't speak. Tran sat across from me, her jade Buddha in her hand. She was rubbing it again, but this time she was smiling. A real smile. Good call on the charge, she said. Good call on the knife, I replied. Koenig was already asleep, his head on his pack. Harlow was stitching up his face. Singh was on the radio, calling his wife to say he was okay. Delgado was cleaning his rifle, his hands finally steady. And I sat there in the noise and the dust and the relief, and I thought about that bored teenager with the RPG. I wondered if he had survived the blast. I wondered if he was someone's little brother. I wondered if he would grow up to be something other than a fighter. And then I stopped wondering, because that was not my war. My war was the 6 people in this helicopter, and I'd saved them all. But the story doesn't end there, because a few weeks later, I got new orders, and those orders would make me question everything I thought I knew about who deserves to be saved. One was a FOB called Sharana, Forward Operating Base, a collection of shipping containers, HESCO barriers, and a whole lot of dirt. We had a chow hall that served eggs that were either powder or plastic. No one could tell the difference. And a gym that smelled like feet and regret. It wasn't much, but it was ours. For 3 weeks after the Webb extraction, we were the heroes of the battalion. The commander pinned medals on our chests in a little ceremony that lasted about 4 minutes. Tran got a Bronze Star with a V device. I got one too, though I didn't feel like I deserved it. Delgado got an Army commendation. He wore it upside down for a day as a joke. Harlow laughed so hard she snorted. But the high wore off. It always does. The adrenaline drains away, and you're left with the come down. The nightmares. The way you flinch when a door slams. The way you check your peripheral vision before you walk into a room. I was sitting in the Koenigs box we used as a team room, cleaning my rifle for the 5th time that week when a captain walked in. Captain Morrison. He was a Mustang, enlisted first, then officer, and he had the kind of tired eyes that said he'd seen too much and slept too little. He was also one of the good ones. He didn't send us anywhere he wouldn't go himself. Riley, he said, got a new mission for you. Sensitive. I set down my rifle. What kind of sensitive? He handed me a folder. Inside was a photo of a man. Afghan, mid-30s, thin face, dark eyes, a small scar on his left cheek. He looked tired, like Morrison, like all of us. His name is Nasir Khan, Morrison said. He's a village elder from a place called Ganjabad, about 60 clicks north of here. He's been feeding us intel for 6 months. Troop movements, IED locations, high-value targets. Good intel. Save lives. Okay, I said. So what's the problem? The problem is the Taliban found out. They've accused him of being a spy. Yesterday, they executed his brother in the village square. They gave Nasir an ultimatum. Turn himself in within 72 hours, or they kill the rest of his family. His wife, his 3 daughters, his mother. My stomach turned to lead. And he wants us to extract them? He wants us to extract him. Just him. He's willing to leave his family behind. Morrison's voice was flat, but I could see the anger in his jaw. He says they're not worth the risk, that we should only save him because he's the one with the intel. I stared at the photo. Nasir Khan, a man who had risked everything to help us, and who was now willing to sacrifice his own family to save himself. Or maybe he wasn't willing. Maybe he was just practical. Maybe he knew that a rescue mission for 6 people was a lot harder than a rescue mission for one. What do you want us to do? I asked. I want you to go to Ganjabad. I want you to extract Nasir Khan. And I want you to bring out his family too, if you can. Morrison looked at me. But here's the thing, Riley. The intel says the village is crawling with Taliban. They're expecting us. They want to make an example of Nasir. So you're going to have to make a call. Who's worth saving? The informant who can keep giving us intel? Or the innocent family who didn't ask for any of this? He left. I sat there for a long time, staring at the photo. Tran came in a few minutes later. She saw my face and sat down across from me without a word. She pulled out her jade Buddha and set on the table between us. Bad one, she asked. The worst. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I was done, she picked up the Buddha and turned it over in her hands. When I was a kid, she said slowly, my grandmother used to tell me a story about a farmer who found a wounded tiger in his field. The tiger was dying. The farmer could have left it there, but he didn't. He nursed it back to health. And when the tiger was strong again, it ate him. That's a dark story. It's a true story. She looked at me. The point is, sometimes saving someone costs you everything. And you have to decide if they're worth it. Is Nasir worth it? She shrugged. That's not my call. It's yours. I gathered the team that night. We sat in a circle in the Koenig's box, the air thick with dust and the smell of sweat. I told them the mission. I told them the stakes. And I told them the choice I might have to make. Delgado spoke first. We save the family. No question. That's what we do. Is it? Koenig asked. He was rubbing the scar on his face, a nervous habit he'd picked up since the sniper attack. We're soldiers. Our job is to protect assets. Nasir is an asset. His family is not. They're people, Harlow said quietly. They're not assets. In the calculus of war, they are. Singh's voice was soft but firm. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I understand it. The captain is giving Riley a choice. Save one life that could save hundreds, or save 6 lives that might cost us our own. The room was silent. I could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on me. They were looking to me. They always look to me. We're going to try to save all of them, I said finally. That's the mission. We go in, we get Nasir and his family, and we get out. No one gets left behind. And if we can't? Tran asked. I met her eyes. Then, we make the call. The helicopter ride to Ganjabad was different this time. Quieter. No one hummed. No one joked. Even Koenig was awake, staring at the floor with an expression I'd never seen on him before. Fear, yes. But something else, too. Something like grief. For people we hadn't even met yet. We inserted 2 clicks outside the village, under cover of darkness. The moon was a thin crescent, barely enough to see by. We moved in single file, Delgado on point, Tran on rear. The ground was softer here, more farmland than rock. I could smell irrigation ditches and livestock. It smelled like home. Not my home. I grew up in a Chicago apartment, but someone's home. A place where people lived and loved and argued about dinner. Ganjabad was small. Maybe 50 mud brick buildings clustered around a central well. The intel said Nasir's house was on the eastern edge, near the cemetery. We approached from the west, using the shadows of the buildings for cover. Dogs barked somewhere. A baby cried. Normal sounds. Human sounds. It made the violence we were about to bring feel like a sacrilege. Contact, Tran whispered. 2 men, north side of the square. Armed. They're not patrolling. They're waiting. They know we're coming, Delgado said. Or they know Nasir is going to try to run. I studied the layout. We go around. Through the cemetery. The cemetery was old. Graves marked with small stones, some with tattered flags fluttering in the breeze. Singh stepped carefully, avoiding the graves. He whispered a prayer for each one. I didn't know the words, but I felt a reverence in his voice. Nasir's house was dark. No lights. No movement. I knocked on the door, 3 times, then 2, then 3, the signal we'd agreed on. Nothing. I knocked again. The door opened a crack. A woman's face peered out. Her eyes were red, swollen. She was holding a small child against her hip. Nasir, I whispered. She shook her head. She pointed inside. We went in. The house was small, 1 room, really, with a hearth and some sleeping mats on the floor. Nasir was sitting in the corner, his knees drawn up to his chest. He looked smaller than his photo. Older. The scar on his cheek was more pronounced in the dim light. You came, he said. His English was accented, but clear. I did not think you would come. We're here to take you out, I said. You and your family. He shook his head. No, only me. My family stays. Nasir, I started. You do not understand. His voice cracked. If I leave with my family, they will know. They will follow. They will kill us all. But if I go alone, my family can say they did not know. They can say I was a traitor, and they're innocent. They will live. You don't know that, Tran said. She was standing by the door, her rifle up, watching the street. The Taliban don't care about innocence. They'll kill your family anyway, just to send a message. Then, at least I will not be there to watch. Nasir looked at me. His eyes were desperate. Please, I have given you everything. My brother is dead. My life is over. Just let me save the one thing I can. I looked at his wife. She was crying silently, the child in her arms staring at me with big, dark eyes. Two other girls huddled behind her, ages maybe 6 and 8. They were terrified, and they were looking at me like I was their only hope. We're taking everyone, I said. That's not negotiable. Nasir started to argue, but Tran cut him off. You can argue with her later. Right now, we have about 30 seconds before that patrol circles back. So shut up and pack. We moved fast. Singh helped Nasir's wife gather a small bag of essentials. Blankets, water, some flatbread. Harlow checked the children for injuries. Delgado and Koenig secured the perimeter. Tran and I kept our eyes on the street. The patrol came back around the square. 2 men, same as before. But this time they stopped. One of them lit a cigarette. The flare of the match illuminated his face. He was older than the others. Harder. He looked at Nasir's house and squinted. He knows, Tran breathed. How can you tell? Because he's not looking at the house. He's looking at the door. He's waiting for it to open. We had maybe a minute. Maybe less. I made a decision. We go out the back. Over the wall. Singh, can you get the family over? He looked at the wall. It was about 8 feet high, mud brick. Yes, but it will be loud and slow. Then, we make noise somewhere else. I looked at Delgado. You and Koenig go out the front. Make a distraction. Don't engage, just draw them away. We'll meet at the rally point. Delgado grinned. It was the grin of a man who was about to do something stupid. Finally, the fun part. He and Koenig slipped out the back door, no, the front door. I was already getting my directions mixed up. My brain was frying. The adrenaline was making everything sharp and blurry at the same time. The distraction worked. I heard Delgado shout something in broken Pashto, probably an insult, and then the sound of running feet. The patrol took the bait. They chased him into the darkness. Now, I said. Singh boosted Nasir's wife over the wall. Then the children, one by one. They were quiet, trained by fear. Harlow went next, then Tran, then Singh. Nasir hesitated at the top of the wall, looking back at his house. His home. His life. Nasir, I said. Go. He went. I was the last one over. My boots hit the ground on the other side, and we ran. Not toward the extraction point. That was too far, but toward a wadi I'd spotted on the map. A dry riverbed that would give us cover until the helicopter could find a new LZ. We ran for 10 minutes. 15. The family was slowing us down. The youngest girl couldn't keep up, and Harlow had to carry her. Nasir's wife was gasping, her face pale. I could hear the patrol behind us now, shouting. Flashlights sweeping the darkness. They're gaining, Tran said. I know. We reached the wadi. It was deeper than I'd hoped, about 10 feet down with steep sides. Singh helped the family down. I stayed at the top, watching the lights. And then I saw them. Not the patrol. Something worse. A second group, coming from the east, flanking us. They planned for this. They knew we'd run for the wadi. They'd set a trap. We're surrounded. I said into my mic, everyone into the wadi. Now, we huddled at the bottom, the family pressed against the dirt wall, my team forming a perimeter. The flashlights were getting closer. I could hear voices. Laughter. They thought they had us. Koenig, where's the bird? 10 minutes out. But they can't land in the wadi. Too narrow. Then, we need a clearer path. I looked at Tran. How many do you think? At least 20. Maybe more. 20. Against 6 of us, plus a family that couldn't fight. The math was ugly. The kind of ugly that made you want to give up. But I didn't give up. I couldn't. Because that's not what leaders do. Singh, I said. You still have demo? 1 charge left. Set it at the east end of the wadi. When they get close, blow it. The collapse will block that approach. Tran, you, and I will take the west end. Delgado, Koenig, cover the family. Harlow, keep them calm. They moved. No questions. No hosetaschen. That was the thing about my team. They trusted me. even when I was making it up as I went along. The first Taliban fighters reached the edge of the wadi. They were looking down, flashlights sweeping. I waited until I could see the whites of their eyes. Then I fired. The first one went down. The second returned fire, his rounds kicking up dirt inches from my face. I rolled, came up shooting, and took him too. Tran was firing beside me, her shots precise, economical. One round, one kill. But there were more. Always more. Singh's charge went off, and the east end of the wadi collapsed in a roar of dirt and rock. The fighters on that side screamed, some buried, some scrambling back. It bought us time. Not much, but some. Birds 2 minutes out. König shouted. They're going to hover. We have to fast rope up. Fast rope. With a family that included a terrified mother and 3 small children. In the dark. Under fire. We can do this, I said. To myself. To them. We can do this. The helicopter appeared, a dark shape against the stars. The rope dropped, swinging in the rotor wash. Singh grabbed it and tied a harness for the youngest girl. Harlow strapped her in, kissed her forehead, and sent her up. She disappeared into the belly of the bird. Next was the middle girl. Then the oldest. Then Nasir's wife. Then Nasir himself, who was crying now, tears cutting tracks through the dust on his face. Go, I told him. Go. He climbed. The rope swayed, and for a horrible second I thought he would fall. But he held on. He made it. Delgado, go. I shouted. He went. Koenig went. Harlow went. Singh went. Tran looked at me. You first. No, you. Sergeant, that's an order, Staff Sergeant. She climbed. I watched her go, my heart in my throat. The Taliban were at the edge of the wadi now, firing down. Rounds sparked off the rocks around me. I returned fire, emptying my magazine, buying Tran those last few seconds. She reached the rope. She climbed. She disappeared. And then it was just me. I grabbed the rope. It was hot, rough, burning my hands through my gloves. The helicopter was pulling up, the rope swinging wildly. I climbed, one hand over the other. My arms were screaming. My legs were kicking at air. A round hit the rope just above my head. The fibers frayed. Another round, and it would snap. I climbed faster. I reached the ramp. Hands grabbed me, Tran's hands strong and sure, and hauled me inside. I collapsed on the metal floor, gasping, bleeding from a cut on my forehead I didn't remember getting. The ramp closed. The helicopter banked, and we were gone. I lay there for a long time, listening to the sound of the rotors. Nasir was holding his wife. The children were huddled together. Harlow was checking them for injuries. Koenig was on the radio, reporting mission success. Delgado was laughing. Singh was praying. Tran sat down next to me. She pulled out her jade Buddha and pressed it into my hand. You kept everyone alive, she said. That's the job. I looked at the Buddha. It was warm from her pocket. Smooth. Old. I almost didn't, I said. But you did. The helicopter flew on. The stars were bright above us. And I thought about Nasir's face when he'd said, just let me save the one thing I can. I had ignored him. I had saved his family anyway. But was that the right choice? Or had I just made him a target for the rest of his life? I didn't know. I wouldn't know for a long time. But I was about to find out. Because when we landed, there was a message waiting for me. A message that would tear everything apart. The message was from Captain Morrison. It said, simply, report to my office. Alone. I left my team on the tarmac. They were still riding the high of the mission, slapping each other on the back, rehashing every moment. Delgado was already exaggerating how many Taliban he'd distracted. At least 50, he was saying. Maybe 60. Harlow rolled her eyes. Koenig was asleep again, leaning against a HESCO barrier. Singh was on the phone with his wife, telling her he loved her. I walked to the captain's office. The FOB was quiet at this hour, 0300, the dead of night. The only sounds were the hum of generators and the distant bark of a dog. My boots crunched on the gravel. My forehead was still bleeding. I didn't bother to wipe it. Mordishin's door was open. He was sitting at his desk, a single lamp casting harsh shadows on his face. He looked older than he had this morning. Or maybe that was just the light. Close the door, he said. I closed it. Sit down. He said. He slid a piece of paper across the desk. It was a printout of a photograph. Grainy, black and white. It showed a man bound and kneeling. His face was turned toward the camera. His eyes were wide. His mouth was open, like he was screaming. It was Nasir Khan. What is this? I asked. My voice sounded strange. Far away. This was taken 2 hours ago, Morrison said. In Ganjabad. After you left. That's impossible. We took him. He was on a helicopter. I saw him. You took his family, Morrison said quietly. You took his wife, his children. But Nasir never got on that helicopter. I stared at the photo. The face was Nasir's. The scar on the cheek. The tired eyes. But the expression was wrong. This Nasir wasn't tired. He was terrified. He was on a rope, I said. I saw him climb. I saw him go inside. You saw someone climb, Morrison said. In the dark. Under fire. With rotor wash blinding you. You saw a shape. You assumed it was Nasir. My brain was spinning. I replayed the extraction. Sending the family up. Harlow strapping in the children. Nasir's wife climbing. Nasir climbing. But had I actually seen his face? Or had I just seen a man in Afghan clothing, roughly his size, and assumed? Who was it? I whispered. His brother, Morrison said. His younger brother. The one the Taliban executed in a village square. But he was dead. You said he was dead. He was supposed to be dead. But the Taliban made a mistake. Or maybe they lied. They executed someone else, a cousin, a neighbor, and they let Nasir's brother live. To use him. To make Nasir cooperate. I felt sick. Nasir traded himself. For his brother. Morrison nodded. He knew you would try to save his family. He knew you would succeed. But he also knew the Taliban would never stop hunting him. So he made a deal. His life for his brother's. His brother went up the rope in his place. And Nasir stayed behind to face the Taliban. The photo blurred in front of me. I was crying. I didn't realize it until I felt the tears on my cheeks. He's dead, I said. It wasn't a question. He was executed about an hour ago, Morrison said. Publicly. In the square. They made a video. They'll release it tomorrow. The message is clear. Anyone who cooperates with the Americans will end up like Nasir Khan. I put my head in my hands. I could still feel his jade Buddha in my pocket. Trans Buddha. She'd given it to me for luck. Some luck. He saved his family, I said. He gave his life for them. He did. And we helped him. We were part of his plan. He used us. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Then, he said, did he use you? Or did he give you the only victory you could have? I looked up. What do you mean? If you had known the truth, that Nasir was planning to sacrifice himself, would you have still gone? Would you have still extracted his family? Yes. Would you have tried to save him too? Even if it meant risking your team? I opened my mouth to say yes. But the word didn't come. Because I knew the truth. If I had known Nasir was going to stay behind, I would have tried to stop him. I would have argued. I would have delayed. And in that delay, the Taliban would have found us. They would have killed us all. Nasir had outsmarted me. He had given me the mission I could accomplish, not the one I wanted. He had saved his family, saved my team, and damned himself. And he had done it all without asking for permission. I walked back to the Königsbox in a daze. The sun was starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Beautiful. Cruel. The world didn't care that a man had just died to save the people he loved. My team was inside. They were still awake, still buzzing. Delgado was showing off a new scratch on his arm. Harlow was bandaging it, rolling her eyes. Koenig had woken up and was trying to teach Singh a card game. Tran was in the corner, cleaning her rifle. They looked up when I came in. They saw my face. And the laughter stopped. Sarge, Delgado said. What's wrong? I told them. Everything. The captain's office. The photo. Nasir's sacrifice. The brother on the rope. When I finished, no one spoke. The silence was thick enough to choke on. Harlow was the first to break it. So we saved the wrong person. We saved the person Nasir wanted us to save, Tran said. Her voice was calm, but I could see her hands trembling. He made a choice. He decided who was worth saving. But he was wrong, Delgado said. He was the asset. He was the one with the intel. His family was, he stopped. Swallowed. His family was just collateral. No Singh's voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a blade. His family was everything. That's why he did it. That's why he died. Koenig put down his cards. So who was worth saving? The informant who could have saved hundreds of lives? Or the innocent family who didn't ask for any of this? I looked at them. My team. My family. The people I had sworn to protect, even if it meant making impossible choices. I don't know, I said. I honestly don't know. Tran stood up. She walked over to me and took her jade Buddha from my pocket. She held it for a moment, then pressed it back into my hand. Keep it, she said. You need it more than I do. I can't, I said. It's yours. It was your grandmother's. And now it's yours. She looked at me. Because you have to make a choice, Riley. Every day. Every mission, every time we go out, you have to decide who is worth saving, and you have to live with the consequences. That Buddha has seen a lot of choices. It can see one more. I closed my fingers around the Buddha. It was warm, smooth, old. I thought about Nasir, about his wife and children who were probably in a refugee camp somewhere, not knowing that the man they thought was their husband and father was actually his brother. I thought about the brother, who would have to live with the guilt of accepting Nasir's sacrifice. I thought about the Taliban, who would use Nasir's execution as propaganda. I thought about the next informant, who would see the video and decide that cooperation wasn't worth it. And I thought about my team. Delgado, who made jokes to hide his fear. Koenig, who hummed when he was nervous. Harlow, who swore at her patients because she cared too much. Singh, who prayed for the dead because no one else would. Tran, who gave away her luck because she thought I needed it more. They were worth saving. Every single one of them. Even when they made mistakes. Even when they doubted. Even when they were scared. Nasir had made his choice. He had saved his family. He had saved my team, indirectly, by making sure the mission was clean and fast. And he had damned himself. Now I had to make my own choice. Every day, every mission, every time we went out. Who was worth saving? The answer, I realized, was not a person. It was not a rank or a role or a strategic value. It was a belief. The belief that everyone is worth saving, even when it's hard, even when it's impossible, even when it costs you everything. Because the moment you start deciding who doesn't deserve to live, you become the thing you're fighting against. I looked at my team, at their tired faces and their steady hands, at the dirt under their fingernails and the hope in their eyes. Get some sleep, I said. We have another mission tomorrow. They didn't move. They were waiting for something. A speech, a lesson, a reason. I didn't have one. I just had the truth. Nasir died for his family, I said. We live for ours. That's the only difference. So let's make sure we earn it. Delgado nodded. Koenig went back to his cards. Harlow finished the bandage. Singh closed his eyes and whispered a prayer. Tran sat down next to me. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Outside, the sun rose over the FOB. Another day, another chance to get it right. Or wrong. I held the jade Buddha in my hand and thought about Nasir Khan, about the choice he made, about the choice I would make tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. Who is worth saving? The answer, I decided, is everyone. Even when it breaks your heart. Even when it costs you everything. Especially then,